What if the greatest discoveries in archaeology weren't buried beneath deserts but hidden in places we thought we already understood? Dense rainforests, quiet farmland, and landscapes explored for generations have all revealed astonishing secrets once new technology looked beneath the surface. These discoveries don't erase history, but they force us to ask new questions about it. Piece by piece, they reveal a past that was often larger, more connected, and far more sophisticated than anyone once imagined. The hidden Maya civilization. For generations, the ancient Maya were often imagined as the builders of magnificent but isolated cities. Pictures of towering stone pyramids rising above thick jungle seem to reinforce that idea. One city here, another many miles away. Between them, endless rainforest. It was a powerful image. It was also incomplete. The problem wasn't that archaeologists misunderstood the Maya. It was that nature had hidden much of their world beneath one of the densest forests on Earth. The jungle had spent centuries patiently covering roads, homes, terraces, walls, and entire neighborhoods until they became almost invisible from ground level. Walking through these forests can be surprisingly deceptive. Trees stretch high into the sky. Vines weave through thick vegetation. The forest floor is uneven and crowded with roots, leaves, and undergrowth. Even experienced researchers may only see a few meters ahead before the landscape disappears behind greenery. In an environment like this, finding a single buried structure can take enormous effort. Finding thousands seems almost impossible. Yet that is exactly what happened, not because archaeologists suddenly became luckier, because they gained a completely new way of seeing. The technology responsible is known as LiDAR, short for light detection and ranging. Unlike traditional aerial photography, LiDAR sends millions of laser pulses toward the ground from an aircraft. Many of those pulses bounce off the forest canopy, but enough travel through small gaps in the leaves to reach the surface below. When those reflected signals return, computers calculate their exact positions. The trees can then be digitally removed. For the first time, researchers can view the landscape almost as if the forest had vanished. The results were extraordinary. Instead of isolated ceremonial centers separated by untouched wilderness, enormous networks of human construction began appearing across the digital maps. Cities, roads, platforms, terraces, defensive structures, residential districts, causeways connecting one settlement to another, features that had remained hidden for centuries suddenly appeared in remarkable detail. Researchers were not discovering entirely new civilizations. They were uncovering the true scale of one that had always been there. This distinction matters. The Maya had never disappeared from history. Their descendants continue to live throughout parts of Central America today. What changed was our understanding of how their ancient cities related to one another. The discoveries suggested that many communities were far more interconnected than earlier models had assumed. Rather than existing as isolated islands of civilization surrounded by wilderness, numerous settlements formed extensive urban landscapes linked by carefully planned infrastructure. Seen from above, the jungle revealed something unexpected: organization. One of the most striking features visible through LiDAR was the network of raised roads connecting important locations. These causeways stretched across the landscape with remarkable precision. Some crossed wetlands. Others linked ceremonial centers with surrounding communities. Together, they suggested movement on a scale difficult to appreciate from ground level. Roads are more than paths. They represent intention. Constructing them requires planning, labor, coordination, and long-term vision. A society capable of building and maintaining extensive transportation networks is also capable of supporting communication, trade, administration, and cooperation across considerable distances. The roads hinted at relationships invisible beneath the trees. The discoveries also transformed understanding of agriculture. Large populations require reliable food production. The newly revealed landscapes included evidence of carefully modified terrain designed to support farming. Terraces shaped hillsides. Engineered landscapes reflected deliberate planning rather than simple adaptation. Instead of merely occupying the rainforest, the Maya actively reshaped it. This realization challenged another long-held assumption. Dense tropical forests were once viewed as environments that naturally limited population size. The new evidence suggested something different. With careful management, these landscapes could support communities far larger than previously believed. That insight changed how researchers interpreted the region itself. The rainforest was not simply a backdrop. It was part of a sophisticated relationship between people and environment. Every new survey seemed to reveal additional complexity. Neighborhoods appeared where none had been expected. Large ceremonial complexes emerged from beneath the digital canopy. Massive platforms, once invisible, suddenly occupied prominent places on archaeological maps. Some discoveries raised immediate questions. Others quietly refined existing knowledge. Together, they painted a picture of remarkable human organization. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of these findings is how ordinary they make the extraordinary seem. A pyramid naturally attracts attention. Its size announces its importance. A road, however, is easier to overlook, so is a terrace or a retaining wall. Yet, when thousands of such features appear across the landscape, their combined significance becomes impossible to ignore. Civilizations are not built from monuments alone. They depend upon infrastructure, homes, transportation, agriculture, planning, daily life. The LiDAR surveys illuminated these less dramatic but equally essential parts of Maya society. Archaeologists often describe excavation as assembling a puzzle. For generations, they had been working with pieces visible above ground. LiDAR suddenly revealed many more, not the entire picture, but enough to recognize that the puzzle itself was much larger than anyone had imagined. Importantly, the technology did not replace traditional archaeology. Finding a structure on a digital map is only the beginning. Researchers must still visit the location, document it carefully, and interpret what they discover. Excavation remains essential. LiDAR guides investigation. It does not complete it. This partnership between technology and fieldwork represents one of archaeology's greatest strengths. New tools expand possibilities while careful excavation provides the evidence needed to understand them. One without the other tells only part of the story. Another remarkable lesson emerges from these discoveries. History sometimes changes not because the past changes, but because our perspective changes. The cities had always been there. The roads had always crossed the landscape. The terraces had shaped hillsides for centuries. The difference lay in humanity's ability to perceive them. That shift carries an important message. There may still be significant chapters of human history waiting just beyond the limits of current observation. Not because they are inaccessible, but because we have not yet developed the right methods to recognize them. The hidden Maya landscape reminds us that archaeology is not simply about digging deeper. Sometimes it is about seeing differently. The discoveries have also encouraged researchers to ask broader questions. If such extensive networks remained concealed beneath one rainforest, could similar patterns exist elsewhere? Could other ancient landscapes still preserve evidence of sophisticated planning hidden beneath forests, deserts, or farmland? Modern archaeological technology continues exploring those possibilities. Every improvement in remote sensing increases the ability to detect subtle traces of past human activity. Tiny variations in elevation, ancient foundations, buried roads, long-forgotten settlements. Features once invisible become part of the historical record. Yet perhaps the greatest impact of the hidden Maya discoveries is philosophical rather than technological. For many years, history tended to describe ancient civilizations in neatly separated categories: cities, villages, monuments. The newly revealed landscape encourages a more connected perspective. Communities interacted. Roads linked people. Agricultural systems supported growth. Urban life extended far beyond famous ceremonial centers. The civilization appears less like isolated points on a map and more like an interconnected living network. That image feels surprisingly modern. Not because the Maya resemble today's societies, but because it reminds us that complexity is not exclusive to the present. People thousands of years ago solved enormous logistical challenges using knowledge, planning, and cooperation. Their achievements deserve to be understood on their own terms rather than measured against modern expectations. Standing above the rainforest today, little hints at what lies beneath. The endless canopy appears almost untouched. Birds glide above towering trees. Rivers carve quiet paths through dense vegetation. From a distance, nature seems to dominate everything. Yet beneath those leaves rests one of archaeology's most remarkable revelations, a hidden urban world, not recently built, not newly created, simply rediscovered. It remained concealed for centuries, waiting until technology finally allowed humanity to look beyond the forest itself. And in doing so, it offered a powerful reminder that history is often far richer than first impressions suggest. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not those buried deepest underground. Sometimes they have been quietly waiting in plain sight all along, hidden only by the limits of how we choose to see the world. Göbekli Tepe, the monument that changed the timeline long before cities, long before metal tools, and long before written language began recording human history. People gathered on a hilltop in what is now modern-day Turkey to build something extraordinary. It wasn't a small village. It wasn't a simple shelter. And it wasn't a temporary campsite. Instead, they created massive circular stone enclosures supported by towering carved pillars, some weighing many tons. Even by today's standards, moving stones of that size would require careful planning, skilled coordination, and tremendous effort. What makes Göbekli Tepe remarkable is not only what was built, it is when it was built. Dating to around 9,600 BC, the site is thousands of years older than many of the world's most famous ancient monuments. That alone makes it one of archaeology's most significant discoveries. Yet its true importance lies in the questions it raises rather than the answers it provides. For much of modern history, archaeologists worked with a broad understanding of how civilization developed. According to this view, people first adopted agriculture, settled into permanent communities, produced food surpluses, and only then began constructing large monuments and organized ceremonial spaces. It seemed like a logical sequence. Farming created stability. Stability allowed populations to grow. Larger communities could organize labor, and organized labor eventually produced monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe challenges that familiar order. The enormous stone structures suggest that groups of people were capable of planning and completing ambitious construction projects before agriculture had become the defining force of human society. That possibility reshapes one of the most important stories ever told about our origins. The hill where Göbekli Tepe stands appears quiet today. Rolling landscapes stretch into the distance under wide, open skies. Wind moves gently across the terrain, offering little hint that beneath the surface rests one of humanity's earliest known monumental building projects. For centuries, the site blended naturally into the landscape. Its stone pillars remained hidden beneath layers of soil, protected by time rather than exposed to it. When archaeologists began uncovering the buried structures, they realized they were looking at something unlike any previously known site from this period. Large limestone pillars emerged from the earth. Many were carefully shaped. Some reached impressive heights. Others stood arranged in carefully planned circles. These were not random stones scattered by nature. Every placement reflected deliberate human intention. The builders had selected the stone, shaped it, transported it, and positioned it with remarkable precision. Even without knowing every detail of their methods, one fact becomes immediately clear. This was organized work. Projects of this scale do not happen by accident. They require cooperation. They require planning. Most importantly, they require people working toward a shared purpose. That shared purpose remains one of Göbekli Tepe's greatest mysteries. Unlike later settlements filled with homes and everyday domestic spaces, the site appears focused on monumental construction itself. Its towering pillars dominate the landscape, creating spaces that feel distinct from ordinary living areas. Because of this, many researchers believe the location may have served an important communal or ceremonial role. The exact nature of those gatherings remains uncertain. Archaeology often reveals what people built more easily than why they built it. Stone survives. Ideas rarely do. Without written records, every interpretation must remain grounded in physical evidence while acknowledging its limits. What can be said with confidence is that enormous effort was invested in creating these spaces. That investment tells its own story. Communities do not dedicate countless hours to projects without believing they matter. The pillars themselves add another layer of fascination. Many are decorated with detailed carvings of animals, powerful predators, birds, wild creatures. Each image was carefully shaped into stone using the tools available at the time. These carvings transform the pillars from simple structural supports into works of symbolic expression. Every figure required patience. Every line reflected intention. Even today, standing before these carvings creates a sense of connection across thousands of years. The artists are gone. Their language has disappeared. Yet their craftsmanship continues to communicate through stone. One of the most surprising aspects of Göbekli Tepe is the sheer engineering involved. Limestone blocks weighing several tons had to be extracted from nearby rock. They then needed to be transported across uneven terrain before finally being raised into position. No machinery existed. No metal cranes. No modern engineering equipment. Only human ingenuity, cooperation, and determination. Exactly how every stage was accomplished continues to be studied. Whatever methods were used, they demonstrate remarkable organizational ability. Construction on this scale requires more than physical strength. It requires leadership, planning, division of labor, knowledge passed between generations. These are qualities often associated with much later societies. Göbekli Tepe suggests those abilities may have emerged earlier than previously believed. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of the site is something visitors cannot immediately see. Many of its structures were intentionally buried. At some point, people carefully filled sections of the complex with earth and debris. This act preserved the pillars beneath protective layers that allowed them to survive for thousands of years. Why this happened remains uncertain. Was it part of a planned transition, a ceremonial practice, a practical decision connected to changing communities? The evidence does not provide a definitive answer. Instead, it offers another reminder that archaeology often uncovers mysteries alongside discoveries. The intentional burial also explains why Göbekli Tepe remained hidden for so long. Instead of collapsing into exposed ruins, much of the monument rested safely beneath the ground until excavation began. Time became its guardian. This preservation allows modern researchers to examine details that might otherwise have disappeared forever. As excavations continue, every carefully uncovered section contributes another piece to a much larger puzzle. Researchers document each stone with extraordinary precision. Measurements are recorded. Positions are mapped. Every discovery becomes part of an expanding understanding of how the site developed over time. This careful approach reflects one of archaeology's greatest responsibilities. Excavation is irreversible. Once soil has been removed, it cannot simply be replaced exactly as it was before. For that reason, every layer is documented with patience and care. Modern technology has become an important partner in this work. Detailed mapping, digital modeling, and precise recording allow researchers to preserve information far beyond what earlier generations could achieve. Future archaeologists may one day revisit today's records using technologies not yet invented, just as today's researchers benefit from tools unavailable only decades ago. Göbekli Tepe also encourages a broader reflection on how human history is written. Historical timelines are built from the evidence available at any given moment. When new evidence appears, responsible scholarship adapts. That process is not a weakness. It is one of science's greatest strengths. Rather than protecting old assumptions, archaeology welcomes discoveries that improve understanding. Göbekli Tepe is an excellent example of that principle. It did not erase previous knowledge. Instead, it expanded it. The discovery reminds us that ancient people were fully capable of surprising modern observers. They solved challenges using knowledge suited to their own world. They organized labor, created enduring monuments, worked stone with impressive skill, and left behind architecture that still inspires questions thousands of years later. Perhaps the site's greatest lesson is one of humility. Modern society often views history as a steady climb toward increasing sophistication. Yet Göbekli Tepe demonstrates that remarkable achievements can appear far earlier than expected. Innovation does not always follow simple, predictable paths. Human creativity has deep roots. Every generation builds upon countless others whose names have long been forgotten. Standing among the towering pillars today, visitors experience something difficult to describe. Silence dominates the hill. The carved stones stand where ancient builders placed them thousands of years ago. The sky overhead has changed little since then. Wind still moves across the landscape. Birds still circle above. The distance between past and present suddenly feels smaller. It becomes easier to imagine people gathering here with shared purpose, investing immense effort into creating a place they believed would endure. In many ways, they succeeded beyond anything they could have imagined. Their monument survived not because history remembered it continuously, but because the earth quietly protected it until another generation was ready to uncover it. Today, Göbekli Tepe stands as more than an archaeological site. It represents the power of discovery itself. A single location challenged one of archaeology's most familiar narratives, not through speculation or legend, but through carefully studied physical evidence. Its towering pillars continue to inspire researchers, historians, and visitors alike, because they remind us that the human story is never truly complete. Every excavation has the potential to reshape what we think we know. Every buried stone carries the possibility of changing the timeline, and sometimes, beneath an ordinary hill, history waits patiently to reveal that the earliest chapters of civilization were far more remarkable than anyone once imagined. Amazonian city networks, the civilization hidden beneath the forest. For centuries, the Amazon rainforest inspired a particular image. It was seen as one of the world's last great wildernesses, a place of towering trees, winding rivers, and extraordinary wildlife stretching across an almost endless landscape. To many people, its dense vegetation suggested that large, permanent settlements would have been difficult to sustain. The rainforest appeared too unpredictable, too challenging, too vast. That assumption shaped how historians and archaeologists imagined the region's distant past. Small communities were certainly expected to have lived there, adapting to the forest and its changing seasons. But the idea of extensive urban landscapes connected across great distances seemed unlikely. Then archaeology began revealing a very different story. As researchers combined careful fieldwork with modern technology, hidden patterns slowly emerged beneath the thick canopy. What first appeared to be isolated discoveries gradually formed a much larger picture. Instead of scattered settlements separated by untouched wilderness, evidence pointed toward dense networks of communities connected across broad areas of the rainforest. The discovery didn't suggest that the Amazon was covered by one enormous city. Rather, it revealed something equally remarkable. Many settlements were linked together, forming organized landscapes that reflected long-term planning, cooperation, and sophisticated management of the surrounding environment. This realization transformed one of archaeology's most enduring assumptions about the world's largest rainforest. The forest had hidden far more than ancient buildings. It had concealed an entirely different understanding of human life in the region. One of the greatest challenges facing archaeologists in the Amazon has always been visibility. Unlike dry deserts, where stone ruins may remain exposed for centuries, tropical forests grow continuously. Trees spread their roots across abandoned walls. Thick vegetation blankets roads. Fallen leaves accumulate year after year, gradually hiding the traces of human construction beneath layers of soil and plant life. A structure can disappear surprisingly quickly. After centuries, even substantial buildings may become almost impossible to recognize from the ground. Researchers walking through the forest often see only what lies directly ahead. The landscape beyond remains hidden behind dense vegetation. This makes large-scale archaeological surveys incredibly difficult. Modern technology changed that perspective. By allowing researchers to look beneath the forest canopy without clearing vast areas of vegetation, hidden features began appearing across the landscape. The discoveries were striking. Geometric earthworks, ancient roads, residential areas, carefully organized settlements. Patterns repeated again and again across different regions. Each individual discovery was important. Together they revealed something much larger. Rather than existing as isolated communities, many settlements formed interconnected networks spread across significant portions of the rainforest. Connections matter. A village tells one story. A network tells another. When communities become linked through roads, shared planning, or coordinated landscapes, they reveal cooperation extending beyond local neighborhoods. That cooperation requires communication. It requires organization. And it often reflects generations of accumulated knowledge. The Amazonian discoveries suggested exactly that. Instead of simply adapting to nature, ancient populations actively shaped their surroundings. This may be one of the most fascinating aspects of the discovery. For generations, the rainforest itself was often viewed as an obstacle to civilization, yet the archaeological evidence suggests a more balanced relationship. The forest was not merely endured, it was managed. Communities learned how to live within it while modifying portions of the landscape to support larger populations. This challenges an important misconception. Human influence on the Amazon did not begin in recent centuries. Long before modern development, ancient societies were already interacting with the environment in thoughtful and organized ways. Their goal was not to replace the forest. Instead, they created systems that allowed communities to thrive within it. That distinction changes how archaeologists think about both the people and the landscape they inhabited. One of the most revealing discoveries involved transportation. Moving through dense rainforest is rarely easy. Rivers naturally serve as important travel routes, but overland movement requires planning. The discovery of ancient roads linking settlements demonstrated that communication between communities was both possible and important. Roads represent commitment. Building one demands labor. Maintaining one requires ongoing effort. People do not create transportation networks unless they expect them to be used repeatedly. These routes hint at regular movement of people, ideas, resources, and traditions. They also suggest that settlements were aware of one another and participated in broader regional systems. Viewed from above, the landscape begins to resemble a carefully organized web rather than isolated points scattered randomly across the forest. This interconnected pattern encourages archaeologists to think beyond individual excavation sites. Every newly discovered settlement becomes part of a larger puzzle. One community may reveal residential structures. Another may provide evidence of public spaces. Together, they help reconstruct how an entire region functioned. The discoveries also emphasize an important truth about archaeology. Absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. For many years, the rainforest simply concealed its history exceptionally well. Limited visibility meant researchers could only study small portions of an enormous landscape. As better surveying methods became available, entirely new possibilities emerged. The ancient settlements had not suddenly appeared. They had always been there. Technology simply allowed researchers to recognize patterns that were previously invisible. This lesson extends beyond the Amazon itself. Many archaeological discoveries throughout history have followed a similar pattern. Improved methods reveal evidence that earlier generations lacked the tools to detect. Each technological advance expands humanity's ability to understand the past. The Amazonian city networks represent one of the clearest examples of that process. Another remarkable aspect of these discoveries is their scale. Individual settlements are impressive. Large regional systems are something else entirely. Managing interconnected communities requires planning that extends beyond a single generation. Roads must be maintained, land must be managed. Resources must be shared efficiently enough to support growing populations. These are not accidental achievements. They reflect societies capable of long-term thinking. Perhaps that is one reason these discoveries have captured worldwide attention. They remind us that sophistication takes many forms. When people hear the word civilization, they often imagine enormous stone monuments dominating the landscape. But archaeology tells a broader story. Organization can exist without towering pyramids. Complex societies may leave behind networks rather than skyscraper-sized monuments. Infrastructure itself becomes the evidence. Roads, settlement layouts, engineered landscapes, patterns repeated consistently across vast areas. Together, they reveal complexity every bit as meaningful as famous architectural landmarks. The rainforest, meanwhile, continued doing what it has always done. It grew, season after season, century after century. Roots spread across forgotten roads. Trees rose where neighborhoods once stood. Nature quietly protected much of the archaeological record beneath living vegetation. Ironically, the same environment that concealed these settlements also helped preserve portions of them. Without constant human development disturbing the landscape, many features remain waiting beneath the forest floor. This delicate balance between concealment and preservation is one reason the Amazon continues to fascinate archaeologists today. Every new survey has the potential to reveal another chapter of its hidden history. Each discovery contributes to a growing understanding rather than offering one final answer. That gradual accumulation of knowledge reflects the true nature of archaeological research. Progress rarely arrives all at once. Instead, hundreds of careful observations slowly reshape larger historical narratives. The Amazonian discoveries exemplify this beautifully. No single excavation transformed history overnight. Rather, repeated findings across multiple locations gradually built a convincing picture of interconnected ancient communities. It is a reminder that science often advances through patience rather than dramatic moments. Every carefully documented site strengthens the overall understanding. Every new map adds detail. Every confirmed settlement helps define the broader landscape. Together, they reveal a civilization that was once hidden not because it lacked sophistication, but because its environment concealed its achievements remarkably well. Standing above the Amazon today, little suggests what lies beneath. An endless green canopy stretches toward the horizon. Birds move through towering trees. Rivers wind silently across the landscape. To the casual observer, the forest appears almost untouched. Yet beneath that living surface rests evidence of generations of human ingenuity. Communities planned their settlements, connected them through transportation networks, adapted their surroundings with remarkable care, created landscapes capable of supporting thriving populations. The forest eventually reclaimed much of their work, but it never erased it completely. Modern archaeology has simply learned how to read the subtle signatures left behind. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the Amazonian city networks. History does not always disappear. Sometimes it becomes hidden beneath layers of time, waiting for curiosity, technology, and careful research to bring it back into view. The discoveries invite us to see the rainforest differently, not as an empty wilderness untouched by human history, but as a landscape that has quietly preserved one of archaeology's most remarkable stories. It is a story of connection, of adaptation, of communities working together across one of the world's most challenging environments. And above all, it reminds us that the past is often far more complex than the surface suggests. The Golden City of Aten, a window into everyday ancient Egypt. When most people think of ancient Egypt, their minds immediately turn to towering pyramids, magnificent temples, and the grand tombs of powerful rulers. These extraordinary monuments have long defined our image of one of history's most remarkable civilizations, but monuments tell only part of the story. They reveal the ambitions of kings, the beliefs of priests, and the achievements of architects. They rarely show what daily life looked like for the thousands of ordinary people whose work kept an entire civilization running. That is what makes the discovery of the Golden City of Aten so extraordinary. Rather than uncovering another monumental structure, archaeologists revealed something much rarer, remarkably well-preserved ancient city that offers an unusually detailed glimpse into everyday life during the reign of Amenhotep III. Instead of asking how rulers were remembered, the city helps answer a different question. How did people actually live? The answer begins with streets rather than pyramids. As excavations carefully progressed, walls began emerging from beneath the desert sand. Rooms appeared. Courtyards took shape. Buildings connected to one another in organized patterns. Instead of isolated ruins, researchers uncovered an urban landscape where people once worked, prepared food, created goods, stored supplies, and carried out the routines that defined daily existence. It was as though time had quietly paused, preserving a community beneath the sands for centuries. Cities are unique archaeological discoveries because they capture movement rather than moments. A royal tomb records a carefully planned farewell. A city records life and progress. Every building becomes evidence of activity. Every room hints at purpose. Every street reflects organization. Together they create something much larger than individual artifacts ever could. The Golden City of Aten provides exactly this kind of opportunity. Its preserved layout allows archaeologists to study how different parts of the community functioned alongside one another. Rather than examining isolated discoveries, researchers can observe relationships between workshops, residential spaces, storage areas, and administrative buildings. Those relationships help transform archaeology from the study of objects into the study of people. One of the most fascinating aspects of the discovery is its state of preservation. Across thousands of years, many ancient cities have been damaged by erosion, construction, natural disasters, or repeated occupation. The Golden City retained an exceptional degree of structural detail. Walls remain standing. Rooms could still be identified. The overall organization of the settlement became surprisingly clear. For archaeologists, preservation like this is invaluable. Every surviving feature adds another layer of information. Instead of guessing where activities may have occurred, researchers can examine physical spaces directly. The arrangement of buildings often reveals how a community functioned long before written explanations become necessary. Walking through such a site today requires imagination. The streets are quiet, the buildings no longer echo with conversation, yet their design still reflects movement. Doorways connect neighboring rooms. Open courtyards suggest shared spaces. Storage areas hint at supplies that once supported daily routines. Although centuries have passed, the city's structure continues to communicate through its architecture. One of the greatest strengths of archaeology is its ability to illuminate ordinary lives. History often remembers rulers because their achievements were recorded in monuments and inscriptions. But civilizations are sustained by far more than their leaders. Artisans shape materials into useful objects. Craft workers develop specialized skills. Officials organize resources. Families prepare meals, raise children, and maintain households. These activities rarely become famous, yet together they form the foundation of every successful society. The Golden City of Aten offers an unusually direct connection to these everyday experiences. Its preserved spaces suggest places where artisans once practiced their crafts. Carefully arranged work areas reveal the importance of skilled labor within the community. These were not temporary workshops. They formed part of an organized urban environment where production supported the broader needs of society. Craftsmanship has always required patience. Whether shaping stone, working metal, preparing ceramics, or creating decorative objects, skilled workers depend upon experience developed over many years. Cities become centers where that knowledge can be shared between generations. The discovery reminds us that ancient Egypt's greatest achievements were possible because countless specialists contributed their expertise every day. The city also highlights the importance of administration. Complex communities require organization. Resources must be managed, supplies stored, work coordinated. Even without examining every individual artifact, the city's layout reflects careful planning. Buildings were positioned with purpose rather than appearing randomly across the landscape. This level of organization reveals confidence in long-term urban development. Communities do not invest in carefully planned cities unless they expect them to endure. Another remarkable aspect of the discovery is the insight it provides into social life. Ancient cities were more than collections of buildings. They were living environments where relationships developed through shared routines. Neighbors interacted, workers collaborated, families gathered within homes and courtyards. Public spaces encouraged movement throughout the settlement. Every pathway connected not just structures but people. This human dimension is often difficult to reconstruct from monumental architecture alone. A temple demonstrates engineering. A city demonstrates community. The Golden City brings that distinction into sharp focus. Its preserved streets encourage archaeologists to think not only about buildings but also about the lives unfolding between them. Imagine the sounds that once filled these spaces: footsteps along packed streets, voices exchanging greetings, craftsmen concentrating on detailed work, officials carrying out daily responsibilities, children exploring familiar paths between homes. While these scenes cannot be observed directly, the physical layout invites careful reflection on how such a community may have functioned. Importantly, archaeology distinguishes imagination from evidence. Researchers do not claim certainty where none exists. Instead, they use preserved structures to develop careful interpretations grounded in observable facts. That disciplined approach is one reason discoveries like Aten remain so valuable. Every conclusion grows from physical evidence rather than assumption. The reign of Amenhotep III provides the historical setting for this remarkable city. Knowing the period allows archaeologists to place the settlement within a broader timeline of ancient Egyptian civilization. Rather than existing as an isolated mystery, the city becomes part of a larger historical landscape. It contributes new details while strengthening existing knowledge. Discoveries of this kind rarely overturn history entirely. Instead, they enrich it. They add texture where only outlines previously existed. The Golden City does exactly that. It expands understanding of how urban communities operated during one of ancient Egypt's most significant eras. Another lesson emerges from the excavation itself. Important discoveries are not always hidden inside spectacular monuments. Sometimes they lie quietly beneath familiar landscapes. The desert has preserved countless archaeological sites because dry conditions slow many of the natural processes that destroy ancient structures elsewhere. Sand covers, it conceals, but it also protects. For centuries, the city remained hidden beneath those protective layers. Its walls survived because they were shielded from continuous exposure. Only careful excavation gradually revealed the settlement once again. That process reflects archaeology at its best. Each layer of soil is removed slowly. Every feature is documented. Measurements are recorded. Relationships between buildings are preserved through detailed mapping. Excavation is as much about recording information as recovering structures. Once an archaeological layer has been uncovered, it cannot simply be restored. For this reason, patience is essential. Modern technology supports that careful work. Digital mapping, photography, and precise documentation allow researchers to preserve every stage of the excavation. Future scholars will continue studying these records long after current excavations have ended. The Golden City therefore exists in two forms. One remains in the desert, the other lives within an expanding archive of scientific documentation. Together they ensure that the discovery continues contributing to historical understanding for generations to come. Perhaps the most meaningful aspect of the Golden City is how familiar it feels despite its great age. The buildings reflect planning. The workshops reflect skilled labor. The streets reflect movement. The community reflects cooperation. Although separated from us by thousands of years, the people who lived there organized their world in ways that remain surprisingly recognizable. They worked. They created. They solved practical problems. They contributed to something larger than themselves. Those shared human experiences bridge enormous stretches of time. Standing among the preserved walls today, visitors are reminded that history is not only the story of extraordinary rulers. It is equally the story of ordinary people whose efforts shaped civilizations from the ground up. The Golden City of Aten offers one of the clearest windows into that forgotten world. Rather than focusing solely on monuments that reach toward the sky, it draws our attention to the streets where everyday life unfolded. And in doing so, it reminds us that understanding history sometimes begins not with the most famous buildings, but with the places where people simply lived their lives. The hidden tombs of Saqqara, Egypt's buried stories continue to grow. Few places in the world have shaped our understanding of ancient Egypt more than Saqqara. For generations, archaeologists have walked its desert plateau, uncovering monuments, burial chambers, and traces of a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago. It has long been recognized as one of Egypt's most significant archaeological landscapes, yet each new excavation continues to demonstrate an extraordinary truth. Saqqara has not finished telling its story. Beneath the quiet sands, discoveries continue to emerge with remarkable consistency. Sealed coffins, carefully arranged burial chambers, beautifully crafted ritual objects. Each finding expands what historians know about ancient Egyptian burial traditions, offering new opportunities to understand how people prepared for what they believed lay beyond earthly life. Unlike discoveries that rewrite history through a single dramatic revelation, Saqqara represents something equally important. It reminds us that history often grows through patient accumulation. Every carefully excavated tomb adds another chapter to a story that has been unfolding for centuries. At first glance, the landscape appears almost timeless. The desert stretches toward the horizon beneath an open sky. Warm sunlight reflects across the sand. Only scattered structures hint at the extraordinary archaeological record hidden below the surface. Yet beneath that calm exterior lies layer upon layer of human history. Each generation left its own traces. Each burial became part of a much larger cultural landscape. Over thousands of years, the ground itself became a remarkable archive. That archive continues to reward careful exploration. Archaeology is often imagined as the search for spectacular treasures. In reality, its greatest value usually comes from context. Where an object is found, how it was arranged, what surrounded it. These details often reveal far more than the object itself. The ongoing discoveries at Saqqara illustrate this perfectly. When archaeologists uncover sealed coffins, they are not simply recovering beautifully preserved artifacts. They are documenting relationships between people, rituals, architecture, and belief. Every coffin occupies a carefully chosen position. Every chamber reflects deliberate planning. Nothing exists in isolation. This attention to context allows researchers to reconstruct practices that would otherwise remain invisible. One of the most fascinating aspects of Saqqara is the continued discovery of sealed coffins. The word sealed carries particular importance. It means these burials remained undisturbed for extraordinary lengths of time. Their original arrangements survived, allowing archaeologists to study them with exceptional care. For researchers, preservation of this kind is invaluable. An undisturbed burial preserves information that disturbed sites often lose forever. The placement of objects, the organization of burial spaces, the relationship between artifacts. Together, these details help build a more complete understanding of ancient customs. Every excavation begins with patience. Archaeologists remove soil gradually, documenting every layer before moving deeper. Each change in the earth may signal a wall, a chamber, or the edge of a previously hidden structure. Progress is measured not in speed, but in accuracy. Once a layer has been removed, it cannot be replaced exactly as it existed before. For that reason, every stage is recorded with extraordinary precision. Photography, mapping, measurements, written observations. Together, they create a permanent scientific record that future researchers can study for decades. Modern archaeology is as much about preserving information as uncovering objects. The discoveries at Saqqara also highlight the importance of ritual items found within burial spaces. These carefully placed objects were not random possessions. They formed part of traditions that reflected deeply held beliefs about remembrance, respect, and the journey beyond earthly life. Although every detail of those beliefs cannot always be reconstructed, the careful arrangement of ritual objects demonstrates that burial practices followed meaningful patterns. Nothing appears careless. Everything reflects intention. The presence of these items reminds us that ancient burial customs were not simply practical ceremonies. They expressed ideas about identity, memory, and continuity. Communities invested considerable effort into preparing these spaces because they believed those actions mattered. That commitment becomes visible through archaeology. Even after thousands of years, carefully arranged objects continue communicating values that written records alone cannot fully explain. Perhaps the greatest strength of Saqqara lies in its continuity. Unlike discoveries focused on a single structure or one extraordinary event, this vast archaeological landscape represents generations of activity. New excavations rarely stand alone. Instead, they become part of an expanding body of evidence collected over many years. Each new burial adds detail. Each newly uncovered chamber strengthens broader patterns already observed. History grows gradually. The discoveries at Saqqara illustrate that process beautifully. Researchers are not replacing previous knowledge, they are refining it, correcting small misunderstandings, adding missing details, expanding the picture one careful excavation at a time. This steady accumulation reflects the true nature of archaeological science. Breakthroughs certainly occur, but lasting understanding usually develops through hundreds of carefully documented observations. Saqqara is one of the world's finest examples of that principle. Another remarkable feature of the site is the way preservation allows modern audiences to connect with ancient craftsmanship. Every coffin represents the work of skilled artisans. Its construction required planning, experience, and technical ability. Creating ritual objects demanded similar expertise. These discoveries therefore preserve not only religious traditions, but also evidence of remarkable craftsmanship. Ancient artisans transformed ordinary materials into objects designed to endure. Their work survives because generations invested extraordinary care in both creating and preserving these burial spaces. The desert itself contributed to that preservation. Egypt's dry climate has protected countless archaeological sites by slowing many of the natural processes that damage organic materials elsewhere. Sand concealed what it also protected. For centuries, the landscape quietly guarded these hidden chambers beneath its surface. Modern excavation simply allows them to be seen once again. This relationship between environment and archaeology is easy to overlook. Without favorable preservation conditions, many discoveries might never have survived long enough to be studied. Nature became an unexpected partner in protecting history. Technology now serves as archaeology's newest partner. Modern excavation techniques allow researchers to document discoveries with remarkable precision. High-resolution photography captures every stage of excavation. Digital mapping records exact positions. Three-dimensional models preserve structures long after excavation is ended. These tools ensure that valuable information remains available even after researchers have completed their fieldwork. Future generations will continue studying today's discoveries, using methods that may not yet exist. Every carefully recorded excavation contributes to an ever-growing archive of knowledge. Perhaps that is one reason Saqqara continues to capture worldwide attention. The site represents possibility. Even after generations of exploration, new discoveries continue emerging from beneath the same desert landscape. This reminds us that archaeology is never truly finished. Every excavation raises new questions. Every answer encourages further investigation. The landscape still holds stories waiting to be uncovered. That sense of ongoing discovery distinguishes Saqqara from many other archaeological sites. Rather than representing a completed chapter of history, it remains an active conversation between the past and the present. Researchers return not because previous work failed, but because every generation brings improved techniques, fresh perspectives, and new questions. History itself remains constant. Our ability to understand it continues evolving. Standing on the Saqqara Plateau today, the desert appears peaceful. Warm winds move gently across the sand. Ancient monuments rise against the clear sky. Beneath the surface, however, countless layers of history remain carefully preserved. Every grain of sand may conceal another carefully planned chamber, another sealed coffin, another collection of ritual objects waiting to expand humanity's understanding of one of history's most remarkable civilizations. The hidden tombs of Saqqara remind us that archaeology is rarely about finding one final answer. Instead, it is about listening patiently as the past reveals itself piece by piece. Each discovery contributes another voice, another perspective, another glimpse into life lived thousands of years ago, and together, those voices continue transforming scattered remains into a richer, more complete understanding of ancient Egypt, one careful excavation at a time. The ancient underground city of Matiate, a hidden world beneath the surface. Most ancient cities leave their mark on the landscape. Their walls rise above the horizon. Their temples dominate the skyline. Their streets gradually emerge as archaeologists remove centuries of soil. The ancient underground city of Matiate tells a very different story. Its greatest achievement was not built toward the sky. It was carved beneath the earth. Hidden below the surface, this vast subterranean labyrinth reveals an unexpected dimension of ancient urban planning. Instead of expanding outward across open land, its builders created a carefully organized world underground, where rooms, corridors, and interconnected spaces formed a remarkably complex environment. For centuries, everything remained concealed. People walked across the ground above, often unaware that an extraordinary architectural achievement lay beneath their feet. Unlike towering monuments that announce their presence from miles away, underground cities depend on secrecy. Their entrances may appear ordinary. Their true scale only becomes apparent after descending into the passages below. That first descent changes perspective immediately. Sunlight fades. Stone walls surround every direction. The sounds of the outside world gradually disappear, replaced by a quiet stillness that has existed for centuries. What begins as a simple passage soon develops into something far more elaborate. Corridors branch in multiple directions. Rooms connect through carefully planned pathways. Open chambers interrupt narrow tunnels, creating spaces that feel organized rather than accidental. Nothing about the layout suggests random excavation. Every section reflects deliberate design. This is what makes Matiate so remarkable. The underground spaces were not isolated shelters carved whenever additional room became necessary. Instead, they formed part of an integrated system that required planning long before construction began. Creating such an environment beneath solid ground demanded an entirely different approach to architecture than building on the surface. Above ground, builders work with open space. They add walls, raise roofs, expand outward. Underground construction reverses that process. Everything begins with removal rather than addition. Every room must be carved from existing stone. Every corridor requires careful excavation. Every supporting surface must remain stable enough to endure over time. Mistakes become difficult to correct. Planning becomes essential. The more archaeologists study underground cities like Matiate, the more they recognize the remarkable level of engineering involved. Even simple movement through subterranean spaces requires careful thought. Passages must connect efficiently. Rooms must remain accessible. The overall layout must support the needs of the people using it. None of this happens by chance. Every turn reflects a decision. Every chamber reflects intention. That organization is one of the strongest pieces of evidence revealing the sophistication of ancient urban planning. Complex cities are not defined solely by their size. They are defined by how effectively their spaces function together. Matiate demonstrates that principle beneath the earth itself. One of the most fascinating aspects of underground architecture is how differently people experience space. On the surface, cities expand beneath the open sky. Landmarks remain visible from great distances. Orientation comes naturally. Underground, everything changes. Stone walls limit visibility. Passages narrow. Direction depends on carefully designed routes rather than distant landmarks. Successful underground planning therefore requires exceptional organization. Without thoughtful design, movement would quickly become confusing. The layout of Matiate suggests its builders understood these challenges extremely well. Its interconnected spaces demonstrate that functionality guided construction from the beginning. Archaeologists often describe ancient cities as reflections of the societies that created them. The same is true here. An underground city reveals priorities that differ from those of surface settlements. Its builders invested enormous effort into shaping hidden spaces that could support organized activity beneath the landscape. That decision alone demonstrates impressive long-term planning. Excavating stone requires tremendous labor. Creating one room demands patience. Creating an entire interconnected labyrinth requires generations of accumulated knowledge. Knowledge itself leaves subtle traces. The arrangement of rooms, the consistency of construction, the relationships between different sections. Together, these patterns suggest techniques passed from one group of builders to another over extended periods. Architecture becomes a record of experience. Every completed chamber reflects lessons learned during earlier construction. Every corridor contributes to an expanding understanding of underground engineering. Perhaps that is one reason discoveries like Matiate inspire such fascination. Unlike monumental temples or palaces, underground cities remain almost invisible until they are entered. Their complexity unfolds gradually. Each passage reveals another. Each chamber leads toward additional spaces. The city slowly introduces itself rather than presenting its full scale at once. This experience mirrors archaeology itself. Researchers rarely uncover entire sites in a single excavation season. Instead, understanding develops carefully. One discovery leads to another. Maps expand. Connections become clearer. The broader design gradually emerges from countless individual observations. Modern archaeological methods play an essential role in documenting this process. Every corridor is measured. Every room is carefully mapped. Three-dimensional models allow researchers to understand relationships between spaces without disturbing fragile archaeological features. These digital records preserve information for future generations, while reducing unnecessary impact on the site itself. Technology enhances exploration without replacing traditional archaeological work. Careful observation remains the foundation of every conclusion. The discovery of Matiate also broadens our understanding of what ancient cities could be. Modern expectations often associate urban development with visible expansion. Larger populations produce taller buildings and wider streets. Underground cities challenge that assumption. Growth can also occur beneath the surface. This realization reminds us that ancient societies solved practical challenges using approaches suited to their own environments. Innovation rarely follows a single path. Human creativity adapts to circumstances. The underground city demonstrates exactly that. Its builders transformed solid rock into organized living spaces through careful planning and sustained effort. Another remarkable feature of Matiate is the sense of preservation created by its location. Underground environments often shield archaeological remains from weather, sunlight, and many natural forces that gradually damage exposed structures. Stone walls remain protected. Architectural details survive longer. Spaces retain much of their original character. This preservation allows archaeologists to study construction techniques with exceptional clarity. Every carved surface becomes evidence. Every passage records decisions made centuries ago. Unlike written documents, stone does not describe intentions directly. Instead, researchers interpret physical evidence through careful observation. The architecture itself becomes the historical record. Each newly documented section contributes another piece to that record. Importantly, archaeology distinguishes clearly between observation and interpretation. Researchers can confidently describe the city's layout. They can measure its dimensions. They can analyze construction techniques. The reasons certain design choices were made, however, often remain open to thoughtful discussion. Responsible archaeology acknowledges that uncertainty. Doing so strengthens rather than weakens historical understanding. Questions encourage continued research. They invite new discoveries instead of closing the conversation prematurely. The underground city of Matiate exemplifies this scientific approach. Its existence is firmly supported by physical evidence. Its broader significance continues expanding as additional study reveals new details. Every investigation improves understanding while leaving room for future discoveries. Standing within its stone corridors today creates a powerful sense of connection with the past. The temperature remains cool. The air grows quiet. Light reaches only where modern visitors bring it. The carefully carved passages stretch into darkness before opening unexpectedly into larger chambers. It becomes easy to appreciate the extraordinary effort required to shape this hidden world. Every wall represents labor. Every chamber represents planning. Every connection between rooms reflects human intention. The underground city reminds us that remarkable architecture is not always defined by what rises highest above the landscape. Sometimes the greatest achievements remain hidden beneath it. For generations, Matiate quietly waited below the surface while history unfolded above. Empires rose. Kingdoms disappeared. Landscapes changed. Yet beneath the earth, its carefully planned spaces endured. Today, archaeology allows those hidden corridors to tell their story once again, not through legends or speculation, but through stone, through engineering, through thoughtful design preserved across centuries. The discovery of Matiate expands more than archaeological knowledge. It expands imagination. It challenges familiar ideas about where cities belong and how ancient people approached the challenge of creating organized communities. Above all, it reminds us that history often exists in places we least expect. Sometimes the most remarkable chapters are not written across the landscape for everyone to see. Sometimes they are waiting patiently below our feet, hidden beneath ordinary ground, until curiosity and careful science finally bring them back into the light. The Viking ship burial. A silent voyage preserved beneath the earth. Across much of history, ships have symbolized movement. They carried explorers across unfamiliar seas, connected distant communities, and opened new routes for trade and communication. Long after a voyage ended, however, a ship usually continued serving practical purposes. Its timber might be reused, its fittings repurposed, and eventually little would remain. That is why the discovery of a Viking ship burial preserved beneath an ordinary field is so remarkable. For centuries, nothing on the surface suggested that an extraordinary piece of history rested just below the soil. The landscape appeared peaceful and familiar, shaped by generations of farming and seasonal change. Yet beneath that quiet field lay the outline of a carefully preserved vessel, offering archaeologists a rare opportunity to study an important part of Viking history without relying solely on written records. The discovery reminds us that some of archaeology's greatest finds are hidden in places people pass every day. Unlike dramatic ruins rising above the landscape, buried ships reveal themselves only through careful investigation and modern technology. At first glance, the field gave no obvious clues. Grass covered the ground. The terrain rose and fell gently with the natural landscape. Nothing suggested that an ancient vessel rested below. Only detailed archaeological surveying revealed subtle patterns beneath the surface. These faint traces eventually outlined the shape of a ship that had remained hidden for centuries. The moment researchers recognized its form, the significance became immediately clear. Ships are unlike most archaeological discoveries. Buildings remain where they were constructed. Roads stay connected to the land. A ship represents movement. It was designed to travel, to cross water, and to connect distant places. Finding one preserved beneath the earth creates a fascinating contrast. An object built for journeys had completed its final voyage long ago and become part of the landscape itself. The burial of a ship reflects careful intention. This was not simply an abandoned vessel left to decay. Its placement beneath the ground represents a deliberate decision carried out with planning and purpose. Although archaeology cannot always explain every reason behind ancient customs, the careful treatment of the ship demonstrates that it held considerable importance. That importance extends beyond the vessel itself. Ships required remarkable craftsmanship. Every plank had to be shaped precisely. Every connection between timbers demanded skill. A successful vessel depended on balance, strength, and careful construction. Long before modern engineering, shipbuilders developed techniques that allowed their creations to travel across challenging waters with impressive reliability. The preserved burial therefore represents both maritime knowledge and woodworking expertise. Each surviving feature contributes to an understanding of ancient craftsmanship. Even when parts of the original wood have changed over time, the overall outline of the vessel provides valuable information about its construction. Researchers carefully document every surviving detail. Measurements are taken. The position of each structural element is recorded. Advanced imaging techniques help preserve the ship digitally before excavation continues. Modern archaeology recognizes that documentation is as important as recovery. Once excavation begins, the original context changes permanently. Accurate recording ensures future generations can continue studying the discovery long after fieldwork has ended. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Viking ship burial is its location. Finding such an important archaeological site beneath an ordinary field demonstrates how easily history can disappear beneath changing landscapes. Centuries of natural processes gradually covered the burial. Soil accumulated, vegetation spread, the ground evolved through countless seasons until no visible trace remained. From above, nothing distinguished the site from the surrounding countryside. History had become invisible without ever truly disappearing. This idea appears repeatedly throughout archaeology. The past often survives not because it remains visible, but because it becomes hidden. Concealment can become preservation. The very processes that erase obvious surface features sometimes protect fragile remains beneath layers of earth. The Viking ship burial illustrates this beautifully. Rather than being destroyed, the vessel was quietly sheltered by the landscape that eventually concealed it. The discovery also broadens our understanding of Viking society. Popular imagination often focuses on dramatic voyages across open seas. Ships naturally play an important role in those stories. Yet archaeological discoveries encourage a more balanced perspective. A vessel is not only a means of travel, it is the product of organized communities. Building a ship requires access to suitable timber, experienced craftsmen, specialized knowledge, and coordinated labor. No single individual creates such a vessel alone. The ship therefore reflects the capabilities of the society that produced it. Every carefully shaped beam represents accumulated experience passed between generations. Knowledge becomes visible through construction. This connection between craftsmanship and community is one of archaeology's greatest strengths. Objects preserve more than their physical form. They preserve evidence of human cooperation. The Viking ship burial quietly tells that story, not through written words, but through careful engineering. Modern excavation techniques allow researchers to examine the site with extraordinary precision. Before removing even small amounts of soil, archaeologists document the burial using detailed mapping and imaging technologies. These methods create highly accurate records that preserve the ship's position exactly as it was discovered. Three-dimensional digital models allow researchers around the world to study the burial without disturbing the original remains. Technology extends the life of archaeological evidence far beyond the excavation itself. Yet even the most advanced equipment cannot replace careful observation. Every layer of soil still requires patient excavation. Every feature must be interpreted within its archaeological context. This balance between technology and traditional fieldwork defines modern archaeology. Each supports the other. Neither works effectively alone. Perhaps one of the most meaningful aspects of the discovery is its emotional impact. Standing beside the outline of an ancient ship beneath open farmland creates a powerful sense of connection across time. The surrounding landscape feels familiar. Birds move across the fields. Wind passes through nearby trees. Life continues much as it has for generations. Yet beneath that ordinary setting rests evidence of people whose lives unfolded centuries ago. Their craftsmanship remains visible. Their decisions remain preserved. Their story continues through archaeology. The discovery also highlights an important lesson about historical landscapes. Places often carry far deeper histories than appearances suggest. Fields become forests. Forests become farmland. Villages expand. Roads change direction. Generation after generation reshapes the surface while older chapters remain quietly preserved below. Archaeologists learn to recognize these hidden layers through careful investigation rather than assumption. Every landscape has the potential to contain forgotten evidence of earlier communities. That possibility keeps archaeological exploration constantly evolving. No matter how thoroughly a region appears to have been studied, new discoveries remain possible. The Viking ship burial is a perfect example. An ordinary field became one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in the area simply because researchers looked beneath the surface. Modern surveying technologies played a crucial role in making that possible. Without disturbing the land unnecessarily, archaeologists identified patterns invisible to the human eye. Only then did careful excavation begin. This thoughtful approach protects archaeological sites while maximizing the information each discovery can provide. As methods continue improving, similar discoveries may emerge elsewhere. Every advance in remote sensing, mapping, and digital recording increases humanity's ability to recognize hidden traces of ancient activity. The Viking ship burial demonstrates how these innovations expand historical understanding without replacing the patience that archaeology has always required. Standing where the vessel once rested, it becomes clear that its significance extends far beyond the ship itself. It represents craftsmanship, planning, community, respect for meaningful traditions. Above all, it reminds us that remarkable history is often hidden beneath remarkably ordinary places. Nothing about the field suggested that such an important discovery waited below, yet careful science revealed an extraordinary chapter of the past lying quietly beneath the soil. The Viking ship completed its final voyage centuries ago. Today, it begins a different journey. Not across open water, but through historical understanding. Every carefully documented detail adds another piece to humanity's knowledge of the ancient world. And with each new discovery, archaeology continues proving that the greatest stories are sometimes the ones waiting silently beneath our feet. The world's oldest wooden structure, a discovery that redefined early human ingenuity. Wood is one of humanity's oldest building materials. It is easy to shape, widely available, and remarkably versatile. Yet it has one major weakness. Unlike stone, wood rarely survives for long. Rain, changing temperatures, insects, and microorganisms gradually break it down until little remains. That is why archaeologists often reconstruct ancient wooden structures indirectly, using the holes they left behind or the tools that may have shaped them. Finding an actual wooden structure from the distant past is exceptionally rare. Finding one dating back nearly 500,000 years near the Colombo River is extraordinary. This remarkable discovery challenges long-held assumptions about the abilities of early humans. Rather than revealing a simple branch or naturally fallen timber, the structure demonstrates deliberate modification and careful placement, suggesting that people were capable of planning and constructing with wood far earlier than previously believed. The discovery does not rewrite history by replacing everything we knew. Instead, it expands the timeline of human ingenuity in a profound way. At first glance, the area surrounding the Colombo River appears peaceful. Water moves steadily through the landscape. Vegetation grows along the riverbanks. The environment feels timeless, shaped by natural forces over countless generations. Few visitors would imagine that beneath this landscape lay evidence of one of humanity's oldest known wooden constructions. Unlike massive stone monuments that dominate the horizon, this discovery remained hidden because of the very material from which it was built. Wood usually disappears. Time rarely allows it to survive. That makes preservation one of the most remarkable aspects of the find. Under the right environmental conditions, fragile organic materials can endure far longer than expected. In this case, those conditions allowed archaeologists to recover evidence that would normally have vanished thousands of years ago. The survival of the structure is remarkable in itself. Its implications are even more significant. For many years, stone tools have dominated discussions of early human technology. Stone survives. It preserves well. Archaeologists recover it in large numbers across ancient sites. Wood tells a different story. Because it rarely remains intact, it has often been difficult to appreciate just how important it may have been in the daily lives of early people. The Colombo River discovery changes that perspective. It reminds us that what survives in the archaeological record is not always a complete picture of the past. Sometimes history favors durable materials while quietly erasing others that were equally important. This discovery gives wood a voice that has been missing for hundreds of thousands of years. The structure itself reveals something deeply meaningful. It was not simply the result of natural processes. The timbers show deliberate modification and careful positioning. These are signs of intention rather than coincidence. Creating even a simple wooden structure requires several stages of thinking. Suitable material must be selected. The wood must be shaped. Different pieces must fit together. The finished result must serve a purpose. Each step reflects planning. Planning is one of humanity's greatest strengths. Long before written language or monumental architecture, people were already solving practical problems through observation, experimentation, and shared knowledge. The Colombo River structure demonstrates that these abilities have far deeper roots than many once imagined. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the discovery is what it suggests about everyday life. Unlike spectacular monuments built to impress future generations, practical wooden structures are closely connected to ordinary human activity. They exist because people need shelter, stability, organization, or improved ways of interacting with their environment. Although archaeology cannot always determine every specific purpose of an ancient structure, the evidence clearly points toward intentional construction. That distinction matters enormously. Nature can arrange fallen branches. It does not carefully shape them to work together. Human decisions leave recognizable patterns. Archaeologists spend years learning to distinguish those patterns from natural formations. The Colombo River discovery is significant precisely because the evidence supports deliberate human craftsmanship. Craftsmanship begins with knowledge. Someone must understand which wood performs best. Someone must know how to modify it without causing it to split or weaken. Those skills are rarely invented overnight. They develop gradually through experience. One generation learns through practice. The next improves upon that knowledge. Over long periods, simple techniques become reliable traditions. The wooden structure therefore represents more than physical construction. It reflects accumulated understanding passed from person to person over countless years. That continuity is one of archaeology's most powerful themes. Knowledge often survives longer than individual lives. It travels through teaching, observation, and repetition. Even without written records, practical skills can endure across generations. The Colombo River structure may represent one moment within that much larger story. Another remarkable feature of the discovery is its age. Nearly 500,000 years stretches far beyond the historical periods most people imagine when thinking about ancient civilizations. At such distances in time, every surviving piece of evidence becomes extraordinarily valuable. The further archaeologists look into humanity's past, the fewer materials remain available for study. Each discovery, therefore, carries enormous importance. It helps illuminate periods where evidence is naturally scarce. Instead of relying on assumptions, researchers can examine physical objects that survived from those distant eras. The wooden structure offers exactly that opportunity. Modern archaeological methods play a vital role in preserving and understanding discoveries like this. Wood requires careful conservation once exposed. Unlike stone, which often remains relatively stable after excavation, ancient wood can change rapidly if not properly protected. Researchers therefore work with exceptional care throughout every stage of recovery. Documentation begins immediately. Measurements are recorded. High-resolution photographs capture every surface. Three-dimensional models preserve the structure digitally before conservation continues. Every detail matters. The goal is not simply to recover the object, but to preserve the information it contains. This careful approach reflects the broader philosophy of archaeology. Objects are valuable because of the stories they help reveal. Protecting those stories is just as important as protecting the artifacts themselves. The Colombo River discovery also reminds us that history is shaped by unexpected preservation. If environmental conditions had been slightly different, this structure might never have survived. Its existence would have remained unknown. Human knowledge of early construction techniques would be less complete. Chance plays a quiet role in archaeology. Researchers can only study what time allows to remain. Every surviving artifact, therefore, deserves careful attention. It may represent thousands of similar objects that disappeared long ago. This realization encourages humility. The archaeological record is incomplete by nature. Each discovery improves understanding while also reminding us how much remains beyond our reach. The wooden structure exemplifies this perfectly. It opens a rare window into a world where wood was almost certainly used far more frequently than surviving evidence suggests. The discovery encourages archaeologists to think differently about early innovation. Technological progress is often imagined as a series of dramatic breakthroughs. In reality, it usually develops through countless small improvements. A better way to shape wood, a stronger joint, a more effective construction method. Over generations, these modest advances accumulate into remarkable achievements. The Colombo River structure represents one of those achievements. Its builders may never have imagined that their work would survive for nearly 500,000 years. Yet their practical solution to an everyday challenge has become one of archaeology's most important discoveries. Standing beside the preserved timbers today creates a quiet sense of wonder. The wood appears surprisingly ordinary. There are no towering walls, no elaborate carvings, no monumental architecture. Its significance lies elsewhere. It lies in the realization that these carefully shaped pieces of wood connect us directly to people who lived unimaginably long ago. They observed their environment. They solved problems. They worked with available materials. They planned ahead. In those respects, they were not so different from us. The world's oldest known wooden structure reminds us that human ingenuity did not suddenly appear alongside cities or kingdoms. Its foundations reach much deeper into the past, long before history was written. Long before civilizations built monuments of stone, people were already thinking creatively, working skillfully, and shaping the world around them with purpose. Sometimes the most important discoveries are not the largest or the most visually dramatic. Sometimes they are simple pieces of wood that quietly reveal just how early the story of human innovation truly began. The massive Maya structures, a hidden landscape revealed by technology for generations. Archaeologists knew the Maya had built extraordinary cities. Towering pyramids, ceremonial plazas, and intricately carved temples stood as unmistakable evidence of one of the ancient world's most remarkable civilizations. These impressive monuments inspired admiration, but they also created a subtle misconception. Because the most visible ruins were often discovered one city at a time, it was easy to imagine them as isolated centers, separated by vast stretches of untouched rainforest. The jungle seemed to tell that story. Dense trees covered the landscape in every direction. From the ground, visibility was limited to only a short distance ahead. Thick vegetation concealed hills, valleys, and nearly everything lying beneath the forest canopy. Even experienced archaeologists could spend years exploring a region without realizing how much remained hidden just beyond sight. Then a new perspective transformed everything. Using advanced mapping technology capable of seeing beneath the rainforest canopy, researchers began revealing thousands of previously unknown structures concealed beneath centuries of vegetation. Instead of finding only a few additional buildings, they uncovered an astonishing network of construction spread across the landscape. The discovery did not reveal a civilization that had been forgotten. It revealed the true scale of one already known. That difference is important. The Maya had always been recognized as extraordinary builders. What changed was the understanding of just how extensive their built environment truly was. As digital maps slowly emerged, archaeologists found themselves looking at a landscape unlike anything they had expected. Hidden beneath the trees were countless structures. Residential areas, platforms, walls, roadways, public spaces. Features that had blended seamlessly into the natural terrain suddenly appeared with remarkable clarity. Viewed together, these discoveries suggested something much larger than scattered archaeological sites. They revealed organized landscapes shaped through generations of careful planning. Every newly identified structure contributed to a growing realization that Maya communities interacted across a much broader scale than earlier observations alone had suggested. One building can tell an interesting story. Thousands of buildings begin telling the story of an entire civilization. Perhaps the most striking lesson from these discoveries is how easily nature can disguise history. Rainforests are constantly changing. Trees grow, roots spread, leaves accumulate. Season after season, abandoned structures gradually disappear beneath living vegetation. Stone walls become low ridges. Terraces resemble natural hillsides. Ancient roads merge into the forest floor. Eventually, entire communities seem to vanish. But disappearance is not the same as destruction. The evidence often remains remarkably well preserved beneath the surface. Modern mapping technology simply gives archaeologists a way to recognize those hidden patterns without removing vast sections of forest. This approach has transformed archaeological research. Instead of relying entirely on slow ground surveys, researchers can now identify promising locations before excavation even begins. Digital mapping guides investigation. Careful fieldwork confirms the discoveries. Together, these methods create a far more complete understanding than either could achieve alone. The thousands of newly mapped Maya structures also highlight the importance of infrastructure. Monumental pyramids naturally attract attention. Their height and beauty make them unforgettable. But civilizations depend on far more than monumental architecture. People need places to live. Communities require organized public spaces. Movement depends on transportation routes. Large populations rely upon carefully managed landscapes. The newly revealed structures represent these everyday foundations of society. They remind us that great civilizations are sustained not only by famous monuments, but also by countless practical decisions repeated over generations. Another remarkable aspect of the discovery is the consistency visible across the landscape. Rather than appearing randomly distributed, many structures form recognizable patterns. Groups of buildings relate to one another. Roads connect important areas. Open spaces serve as organizing features within larger settlements. These patterns suggest deliberate planning rather than accidental growth. Planning requires communication. It requires cooperation. Most importantly, it requires people thinking beyond immediate needs and considering how entire communities function together. That ability reflects a sophisticated understanding of urban organization. The discoveries therefore deepen appreciation not only for Maya engineering, but also for Maya society itself. They reveal communities capable of coordinating large projects across broad areas while adapting successfully to the challenges of the rainforest environment. This relationship with the surrounding landscape is one of the discovery's most fascinating elements. The forest was not simply an obstacle, it was part of daily life. Ancient communities developed ways to live within it while shaping selected areas to support growing populations. Rather than replacing nature, they worked within it. The newly mapped structures illustrate this balance beautifully. Human construction and the natural environment existed together across an enormous landscape. For archaeologists, every newly identified structure becomes another opportunity to ask meaningful questions. What purpose did this building serve? How did nearby communities interact? Why were certain locations chosen? Each answer contributes to a broader understanding of how Maya society functioned. Importantly, mapping alone does not answer every question. It reveals possibilities. Excavation provides confirmation. Researchers still visit individual locations, document visible remains, and carefully study every feature before drawing conclusions. Technology accelerates discovery. Scientific investigation provides understanding. This partnership between innovation and traditional archaeology represents one of the field's greatest strengths. The discoveries also remind us that history often changes through improved observation rather than dramatic new events. Nothing beneath the rainforest suddenly appeared. The structures had always been there. Humanity simply developed better tools for recognizing them. That idea carries an important lesson. There may still be significant chapters of human history waiting quietly beneath forests, deserts, fields, or even landscapes that seem thoroughly explored. Each technological advance expands humanity's ability to see what previous generations could not. The Maya discoveries demonstrate just how transformative that change in perspective can be. Another important aspect of these findings is what they reveal about population and organization. Large numbers of interconnected structures suggest communities capable of supporting substantial populations over long periods. Maintaining roads, public areas, and residential districts requires continuous effort. Communities must cooperate, knowledge must be shared, responsibilities must be organized. These qualities emerge naturally from the archaeological landscape itself. Rather than relying only on written accounts, researchers can observe physical evidence of coordinated human activity stretching across extensive areas. That evidence strengthens the understanding of the Maya as highly organized builders, whose achievements extended well beyond their most famous monuments. Standing above the rainforest today, little hints at the extraordinary world hidden below. The endless green canopy appears almost untouched. Birds move through towering trees. Sunlight filters across leaves that have quietly protected ancient construction for centuries. Yet beneath that living forest lies an astonishing record of human creativity. Thousands of carefully planned structures, communities connected across the landscape, generations of builders shaping their environment with remarkable skill. The jungle concealed those achievements, but it never erased them. Today, archaeology is revealing them piece by piece. Each newly mapped structure expands humanity's understanding of one of history's greatest civilizations. Each careful excavation transforms digital outlines into lived places where people once built homes, traveled along roads, gathered in public spaces, and shaped communities that flourished beneath the rainforest canopy. The massive Maya structures remind us that history is often far larger than the monuments we already know. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not entirely new. Sometimes they're familiar stories seen from a completely new perspective. And when that perspective changes, an entire civilization can suddenly appear far more connected, more ambitious, and more extraordinary than anyone had previously imagined. The Terracotta Army's new sections. New discoveries from an ancient masterpiece. Few archaeological discoveries have captured the world's imagination like the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, each created with remarkable attention to detail, have long stood as one of the greatest achievements of the Qin dynasty. For decades, these silent figures have represented extraordinary craftsmanship, careful planning, and the ambition of an ancient empire. Yet one of the most fascinating aspects of the Terracotta Army is that its story is still unfolding. Archaeological work continues to reveal new sections, uncovering additional soldiers and previously unseen military details that deepen our understanding of how this remarkable creation was designed. Rather than treating the site as a finished chapter of history, researchers now see it as an ongoing source of discovery. Every carefully excavated area has the potential to add another piece to an already extraordinary historical puzzle. That is what makes the Terracotta Army so unique. It is famous not only for what has already been uncovered, but also for what continues to emerge from the earth. At first glance, the rows of clay figures create an unforgettable impression. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they appear almost alive. Each soldier faces forward with quiet determination. Their postures are disciplined, their expressions are calm. Together, they create the image of an organized military force frozen in time. From a distance, the army appears uniform. A closer look reveals something entirely different. No two figures seem exactly alike. Subtle differences in facial features, hairstyles, clothing, and equipment give each soldier an individual character. This remarkable level of detail demonstrates an extraordinary commitment to craftsmanship. The creators were not simply producing identical statues. They were building an army that reflected variety within order. That balance between individuality and organization continues to fascinate archaeologists today. As excavation expands into newly explored sections, researchers gain opportunities to study details that were previously hidden beneath the soil. Each newly revealed soldier contributes additional information. Some display variations in armor. Others reveal differences in posture or military equipment. These observations help researchers better understand the diversity represented within the overall formation. Importantly, archaeology approaches these discoveries with patience. Each figure is documented exactly as it appears before any attempt is made to move or preserve it. Position matters. Orientation matters. Relationships between neighboring figures matter, Every detail contributes to a broader understanding of how the army was originally arranged. Excavation therefore becomes much more than simply uncovering statues. It becomes the careful recording of an ancient design. One of the most impressive aspects of the Terracotta army is the scale of planning required to create it. Producing a single life-sized figure would already demand significant skill. Creating thousands required something much greater. Materials had to be prepared. Craftsmen needed specialized knowledge. Work had to be coordinated across many stages of production. The finished figures then had to be arranged according to a carefully planned layout. Such an undertaking reflects remarkable organization. Projects of this size cannot succeed without cooperation. Every completed soldier represents the combined efforts of many individuals working toward a shared goal. The newly uncovered sections help illuminate that process. Each discovery provides another opportunity to study how the overall project developed. Patterns begin to emerge. Researchers compare construction methods. They examine similarities and differences between figures. They analyze how individual discoveries fit within the larger archaeological landscape. These careful observations gradually strengthen historical understanding. Rather than relying on assumptions, archaeology builds its conclusions through physical evidence. Every newly excavated section contributes directly to that evidence. Another fascinating feature of the ongoing work is the extraordinary level of preservation. For centuries, the figures remained protected beneath layers of earth. That natural covering shielded many details from weather and other environmental changes. As a result, newly uncovered soldiers often retain remarkable structural features that allow researchers to examine craftsmanship with exceptional clarity. Preservation, however, also brings responsibility. Once ancient objects are exposed, they become more vulnerable to environmental change. Archaeologists therefore proceed carefully, balancing discovery with conservation. The goal is not simply to uncover more of the site. It is to ensure that every newly revealed figure remains protected for future generations. Modern technology has become an essential partner in achieving that goal. Before excavation continues, researchers create detailed digital records using advanced imaging and mapping techniques. Three-dimensional models preserve the exact position of every figure. High-resolution photography documents even the smallest visible details. These records allow specialists around the world to study the discoveries without disturbing the original archaeological context. Technology extends the life of the evidence while supporting careful scientific research. The ongoing discoveries also demonstrate an important principle about archaeology. Famous sites are not necessarily fully understood. Popularity does not mean completion. Even locations that have been studied for decades continue producing valuable new information. The Terracotta army is a perfect example. Every additional excavation expands historical knowledge. Every newly documented soldier strengthens the understanding of one of history's most ambitious artistic and engineering achievements. This steady progress reflects the true nature of archaeological research. History is rarely uncovered all at once. Instead, understanding develops gradually. One excavation leads to another. New evidence encourages new questions. Each discovery becomes part of an expanding conversation rather than a final conclusion. The Terracotta army continues to inspire that process. Its scale ensures that careful investigation remains worthwhile. Its craftsmanship rewards close observation. Its ongoing discoveries remind researchers that even well-known archaeological sites can still hold important surprises. Perhaps the greatest lesson offered by these newly uncovered sections is one of perspective. When the Terracotta army was first introduced to the modern world, it already seemed almost beyond imagination. Thousands of carefully crafted figures standing together beneath the earth represented an achievement unlike anything previously known. Yet continued excavation reveals that the story did not end with the first discoveries. History remained beneath the surface. Patient research simply continued revealing it. That lesson extends far beyond the single site. Archaeology is never truly finished. Every excavation adds information. Every improvement in technology creates new opportunities. Every generation of researchers asks questions that previous generations could not. As knowledge grows, historical understanding becomes richer and more complete. Standing before the Terracotta army today is an unforgettable experience. Rows of silent figures stretch across the excavation area with remarkable precision. Their expressions remain unchanged despite the passing of centuries. The craftsmanship still commands admiration. The organization still reflects extraordinary planning. And beneath nearby layers of earth, additional discoveries continue waiting with quiet patience. The new sections of the Terracotta Army remind us that history is not a fixed collection of completed stories, it is an ongoing process of discovery. Every carefully uncovered soldier contributes another voice to that process, revealing fresh details about the skill, organization, and creativity of the Qin dynasty. Together, these discoveries reinforce a powerful truth. Even the world's most famous archaeological sites can still surprise us. Sometimes, the next remarkable chapter has been waiting beneath the ground all along, ready to emerge only when careful science, modern technology, and patient curiosity work together to uncover it. Stonehenge's hidden monuments, the landscape beyond the stones. For centuries, Stonehenge has stood as one of the world's most recognizable archaeological landmarks. Its towering stone circle has inspired curiosity, debate, and admiration across generations. Visitors travel from around the world to stand before its massive stones, wondering how they were transported, why they were arranged so precisely, and what purpose they once served. Yet one of the most important archaeological discoveries connected to Stonehenge is not another stone. It is the landscape surrounding it. Modern, non-invasive technology has revealed that the famous monument was never isolated. Instead, it formed part of a much larger ceremonial landscape filled with previously hidden features that remained invisible beneath the ground for thousands of years. This discovery has transformed how archaeologists understand one of history's most iconic sites. Rather than focusing solely on the stone circle itself, researchers now study Stonehenge as the center of a broader archaeological environment where multiple monuments and carefully organized spaces once existed together. The discovery reminds us that famous landmarks often represent only a small portion of much larger historical stories. Standing at Stonehenge today, the surrounding countryside appears calm and open. Rolling grasslands stretch across the horizon beneath wide skies. From the surface, little suggests that significant archaeological remains lie just beneath the soil. For generations, attention naturally focused on the towering stones rising above the landscape. Their scale and symmetry made them impossible to ignore. Everything beyond them seemed comparatively ordinary. Modern surveying techniques changed that perspective completely. Without disturbing the ground, researchers began examining what lay beneath the surface. Instead of relying solely on excavation, they used advanced, non-invasive methods capable of detecting subtle variations hidden underground. Slowly, an entirely new picture began to emerge. Features invisible to the human eye appeared on detailed survey maps. Hidden earthworks, previously unknown structures, patterns suggesting carefully planned ceremonial spaces. Each new discovery expanded the understanding of how the surrounding landscape had once been organized. Perhaps the most remarkable lesson from these findings is that archaeology does not always require digging to make extraordinary discoveries. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough comes from seeing familiar places in entirely new ways. Non-invasive technology allows researchers to preserve archaeological sites while gathering valuable information about what remains below the surface. This careful approach protects fragile evidence for future generations, while revealing relationships that would otherwise remain hidden. The newly identified monument suggests that Stonehenge was part of a much larger ceremonial setting, rather than a single isolated construction. Instead of standing alone, the famous stones appear to have shared the landscape with other significant features, creating a broader environment shaped with remarkable intention. This changes how archaeologists interpret the site. Attention shifts from one monument to an interconnected landscape where multiple locations may have held meaning within a larger design. Connections become just as important as individual structures. One monument tells a story. A network of monuments tells a civilization's story. The discovery also highlights the importance of perspective in archaeology. For centuries, researchers examined what could be seen above ground. That work established Stonehenge as one of the world's most important prehistoric monuments. The newer discoveries do not replace that understanding, they enrich it. They remind us that the visible remains represent only part of the archaeological record. Much of history continues to exist beneath the surface, waiting for better methods to reveal it. Another fascinating aspect of the hidden monuments is the sense of intentional planning they suggest. Large ceremonial landscapes are not created accidentally. They require organization, cooperation, and long-term vision. Every feature occupies space within a wider setting. Every location relates to the landscape around it. Such planning reflects communities capable of thinking far beyond individual construction projects. They shaped entire environments rather than isolated structures. Modern technology has made these relationships easier to recognize. Detailed mapping creates precise digital models of the landscape, allowing archaeologists to study patterns impossible to appreciate from ground level alone. Subtle changes in elevation become meaningful. Hidden boundaries become visible. Previously unnoticed alignments begin to emerge. Each new observation contributes another piece to the archaeological puzzle. Importantly, researchers remain careful in distinguishing observation from interpretation. Technology can reveal buried features with remarkable accuracy. Understanding exactly how those features were used requires patient analysis supported by physical evidence. Responsible archaeology embraces both discovery and uncertainty. It allows evidence to guide conclusions rather than forcing simple answers. That careful approach strengthens every new finding. Standing within the Stonehenge landscape today offers a different experience than it once did. The towering stones remain the visual centerpiece, but they no longer stand alone in the imagination. Beyond them stretches a landscape shaped by generations of human activity, much of it still hidden beneath the grass. The discovery encourages visitors to look beyond what is immediately visible. Sometimes the most remarkable parts of history leave only the faintest traces. Yet with curiosity, careful science, and advancing technology, those traces become visible once again. Stonehenge's hidden monuments remind us that archaeology is not only about uncovering remarkable objects. It is about revealing relationships between places, people, and landscapes that time has quietly concealed. Every new survey expands that understanding, showing that even one of the world's most famous archaeological sites still has new stories to tell. And perhaps that is the greatest discovery of all. History is rarely confined to a single monument. More often, it is woven across an entire landscape, waiting patiently for us to learn how to see it. Every discovery you've seen today reminds us that history is never as complete as it seems. Beneath forests, deserts, rivers, and even ordinary fields, countless stories still wait to be uncovered. With every new excavation and every advance in technology, archaeologists continue revealing pieces of our past that challenge old assumptions and deepen our understanding of the people who came before us. The more we learn, the more we realize how much remains hidden. If you enjoyed exploring these remarkable discoveries, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which archaeological discovery surprised you the most? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next journey into history.